Hey everybody, just want to let you know about the video you're going to get to see here in just a minute. Last week, we did one of these with pastors and church administrators and leaders about how they're meeting the needs of their churches. Today, we are talking with educators, teachers, principals, county administrators, college professors, to see how they are meeting the needs of their students right now. Hopefully, it's a tool that many of you can use the rest of this school year. And I just thank you for the opportunity we have to serve you and to partner with you. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the video. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Alumni Educators Zoom call. And we're going to have everybody introduce themselves. To start with, I'm Joel Johnson. Hopefully, everybody knows me by now. I was an education major, secondary education, social sciences, K-12, back in 1992. And I did spend 12 years in the classroom, so I know a little bit about what these people are talking about. Stacy, if you'd go first and let us know where you're teaching, when you graduated, all that stuff.
Hi, my name is Stacy Leatherman. I graduated from Southeastern in '97. I'm currently in year 23 of teaching, and I've done a little bit of everything. Elementary, middle school. I was an assistant principal in California. I'm currently teaching 6th grade science in Birmingham, Alabama.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Tony and Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Hayes. I am a 1997 graduate of Southeastern University. This is my 23rd year in education. I have taught kindergarten through 5th grades and am now, I have the honor to serve alongside as the principal of my pre-K through 5th grade school here in Floyd County in Rome, Georgia.
I'm Tony Hayes, graduated from SEU in '96. This is my 24th year in education. Taught my first year at Lake Region there near Winter Haven, 10th and 11th grade, but now I teach 8th grade Georgia history.
Thank you. Jessica?
Hey, I'm Jessica Solano. I graduated in 2008 with an elementary education degree. I've been teaching for about 10 years and then was selected as Florida's Teacher of the Year in 2017, which has helped put me in the position I'm at right now with the district as their teacher engagement leader for Polk County Public Schools.
Very nice. Kathy, you're next.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dyer. I've been teaching since 1994 when I graduated from Southeastern. I teach currently 10th grade English and creative writing at McKeel Academy of Technology.
Excellent. And Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily, and I graduated in spring 2016, and I've been teaching for 4 years, all at Southwest Elementary and Kindergarten.
All right, Kelsey?
I'm Kelsey Whalen. I'm a 2017 graduate of Southeastern, and I have been teaching at Lake Gibson Middle School since I graduated, teaching middle school math.
Excellent. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Saganek. I'm an assistant professor of education at Southeastern University and hopefully will be a 2020 alumni from the doctoral program. I have 16 years of teaching experience in elementary and secondary, and I've been teaching in our College of Education for the last 5 years, working with undergraduate teachers to be.
All right, and Abner?
Hello, I'm Abner Rivera. I graduated from Southeastern in 1996. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is my 23rd year. Looking forward to retirement in 2 years, and I enjoy, just enjoying the ride.
Great. So we've got a great cross-section of new teachers, seasoned teachers, about to retire teachers, college professors. I think this is a great representation of what we can have. So our first question, I'm going to start with you, Emily, if you wouldn't mind. How are you currently staying in touch with your students? What kind of platforms, whatever it is you're using? And then Kathy, if you could follow up, please.
All right. Well, I've been mostly using Class Dojo to talk to parents, and as long as they've read it, I check the box and make sure that it's a good way to stay in touch with parents and students. Also, I have a Google site, which is kind of like a Google Classroom, but it's just easier. It's one site, and it has, you can click on it, and it goes different things. And so I made my site just for my kindergarteners, and so then I've been emailing them, and a lot of times I have a Google phone too, so I have a number that they can contact me as well. So
I'm very lucky to be at McKeel Academy of Technology. Our kids have iPads. We have a one-to-one iPad program. So this was not real difficult, the transition to online learning. I say it's not difficult. It's not difficult keeping in touch with them. I've had to completely revamp what I'm doing as far as their assignments and what they're learning. But we're lucky in that our kids kind of already have the technology understanding. And as far as parents, they're required to have an email account with the school. So I can email all my parents. My husband works for the county, and I've just watched him struggle even trying to contact students and parents just to get that first, hey, we're going to be doing online learning. Here's what you need to do. That first contact established. So I feel very lucky. We use Canvas, which is an LMS that most colleges use now. So our kids are doing fairly well. I still have some lazy ones who haven't turned in one assignment, but for the most part, like I can contact them anytime I need to. I've been using Zoom videos to also stay in contact with them. Some teachers are using live Zoom with their classes. I haven't done that yet. Sophomores, I don't know. They tend to be a little bit anti. They don't. If I were to have a Zoom, I've had friends who did a Zoom with this age group, and like 13 out of 70 showed up. So we haven't done a lot of live Zooming, but we have done videos through Zoom. So it's worked out pretty well for me. Can't complain.
Amy and Jessica, could you address what it's been like to stay in touch with your teachers and how you're communicating with them?
Absolutely. So our superintendent, he has really led the way, and I guess led by example. We have weekly communication with him. We're a Google system. So we're one-to-one with our Chromebooks. And so in meeting with my superintendent each Tuesday, I'll turn around on Wednesday and have a Google Meet with my staff. Our motto at my elementary school is we are model and we're family. So we're very close. The teachers are very supportive. When we get together, pretty much I'll just reflect my screen, my agenda, and we'll have a little chat bar over to the side to where if they have questions or whatnot, the teachers will type in their chat questions. And some of the teachers are doing some, really out of the box creative things, and I'll ask them, I'll say, unmute your mic and, chime in, share with us how things are going. But pretty much as a Google system, Google Meet, we do weekly, and the Google Classroom is what my teachers are using on a weekly basis with their students, along with a few other platforms that we've had digitally. But overall, our transition, having been a Google system, has been not as bumpy as what some of the others have been in the transition. And our parents, I have seen such compassion, I think, for the fact that we're facing this not only as a city and as a county, but as a state, a nation, and globally. The level of compassion that I've seen from our parents and the level of understanding and what can we do has just been unprecedented. I've been thoroughly pleased with the parents and the students and the responses that we're getting from the work that we're putting out, basically saying we're in this together. And that's the attitude that our families and our teachers have approached this as.
Very nice. Jessica?
Yeah, so a lot of what our department does is try to connect teachers with each other so they're not feeling so siloed, so they're feeling supported, and that they want to really have this community around them so that they continue to teach and be effective teachers. We've had programs like our affinity groups, which are just common interest groups, where a bunch of people meet together and eat food together or go through book studies. And so all of those have kind of had to take a pause right now. So we've been using a lot of Zoom to stay connected. A lot of our district is using Microsoft. But really, we're trying to do as much as we can to still not have them feel so siloed still, even when they're at home. So one thing we do is new teacher seminars, and every month we have some kind of focus specific need that a lot of teachers, but specifically new teachers need support in. And ironically, this month it was instructional technology. So it worked out quite nicely. So we're doing a Zoom, but we're also projecting it onto Facebook Live. So it's really amplified the amount of people that are then connecting with us through social media, which we're using a lot right now. And then being able to hear from teachers, which is what we love to do, is really elevate the teacher voice and see what teachers are doing in their classroom that's working. So they'll hear other teachers say how, this is how I'm using Zoom, this is how I'm using Nearpod, this is how I'm using Microsoft Teams. And what we're trying to really get them to see is this is something that's really great right now, but then what does that look like when we come back together? So any opportunity that we can get teachers to talk with each other and learn from each other and stay positive, I think has been really powerful. We have a teacher leadership group that we use. I know Kelsey's been in that before. She's in it. So those teacher leaders are leaders who are wanting to make an impact beyond the walls of their classroom. So we've continued to have those sessions and have those through Zoom. And then we'll also continue to do things like new teacher interviews and state interviews now that teachers are at home and might be willing to kind of do that instead of waiting until the end of the school day. So we're hoping to stay connected even though we're all having to be at home.
Lisa, what about at the college level? How are you staying in touch with your students? What platform are you using?
Well, I think much the same as everyone else. I've tried staying connected with my students through email, of course. I continue to hold classes using the Zoom platform, doing live synchronous classes when my classes normally would have met. But there has also been a measure of independent work for my students as well. Many of them having gone home kind of on the fly once campus was closed. They've been sharing bedrooms, they've been sharing computers, they've had to work to help support their families because a parent has lost a job. So, being mindful of the challenges that my own students have has kind of made me adjust and retool much of what I do. But connection has come through meeting with them live through email. I also have a Google Voice line. They can call, email, or text. One of my favorite things that I've implemented is simply Sunday night devotions. Anybody who's interested, I sent them a Zoom link. I don't know, we might all be Zoomed out, but they hop on with me at 5:30 on a Sunday. We share some encouragement, we share some chat time, and that's been really meaningful, along with video announcements in our Brightspace platform on a weekly basis too. So it's worked out pretty well.
Great. Anyone else have a different system that they've used or anything that they want to jump in with right now?
Yeah, so I wanted to share a little bit with like middle school. They're kind of like right in between the age of like they're not quite responsible enough to like be the main communicator, but they do have a little bit more ability than the elementary students. So what I have done is I've actually like created a class Instagram page because a lot of them are on social media. So I was able to find like a lot of them on there. And I communicate with them the same stuff that I post on the Parents Remind, because that's my main way of communicating with the parents, on the Instagram to kind of give the kids a chance to take the responsibility also. And then I do use Google Classroom as my main platform of communication with the class. And through that, we use Google Meet. So they've like revamped Google Meet to where you can add a link right on the page. And so at any time, the kids can click that link. And if the teacher's in the meeting, then it will join them into the meeting also. So I weekly Google Meet with them. And it's mainly just to like hang out and catch up because they need that interaction with each other. And then they're doing their math work on Khan Academy. So I just check that and communicate with them on Google Classroom.
So our district, we're not allowed to use Zoom because of issues that have been found. So we're using something called WebEx, which is similar. It's just a little more secure. Mm-hmm. And we have virtual hours in our WebEx. So we have to be available. And we post our link in Google Classroom. And if kids have questions, they just come to our virtual classroom. And I get an email and I go in there and we can kind of face-to-face, or if they call in with a phone. But that's been good because I've had a few kids. I teach in a low-income school, so I've had a lot of kids that need food, and their families, their parents are out of work. So we also have advisory groups that we call every week and talk to the parents. And but really similar to what most everyone else has said, you know, is kind of how we're working in our county as well.
Okay, start with Abner and then Tony on this one. All right. So what have you discovered that's just worked really well for you? You know, and whether it's presenting your lessons, teaching, contacting, whatever, something that's worked really well for you and your classes. Abner?
We use Google. We use Class Dojo to communicate with the parents, and that's been really well. It's worked well with us. Parents are usually on. I can send a message, and within 5 minutes they're responding. We use Google Classroom for all of the assignments. It's a little confusing at the beginning because we had to create classes for everything. So an ELA class, math, science, social studies, and health, and then we had to create the classes for the specials like world language and music and art. So once we got all that figured out, and that took about 4 or 5 days for the kids to kind of join in and all that. But now it's up and running. The kids know. So I send the schedule out on Class Dojo in the morning, and I tell them all the assignments. The assignments are in the Google Classrooms. They go ahead and go into the Google Classrooms, and I attach. I create my own Google Docs so they can be able to turn in work to me. One challenge we had was that when the students came back, we closed March 13th. Then the 16th, that Monday, they asked the parents to come in to pick up the packets. A lot of parents, for whatever reason, they didn't get the memo that they had to pick up also the kids' books. So once the school closed, we had a ton of kids who didn't have the books. And so we had to get on digital platforms, and the district had to do that. To be able to access the teacher edition so that we could get the work done. But you know, that's all kind of evened out. I think Stacy talked about WebEx. Yeah, we were using Zoom as well. And then we had some issues where people were hacking the Zoom and putting inappropriate stuff on there. Yeah. And the kids were, had access to that, and we had to switch over. So we do WebEx, which is a little bit more more controlled and a little bit more secure. We still have our grade level meetings once a week, and our principal comes in and our vice principal comes in and works with us. I know you're going to talk about challenges, but our school is huge. It's a K-8 school, so we have almost 1,200 kids in our school, and we have 5 of each class. So we have 5 first grades, 5 second grades, 5 third grades, 5 fourth grades. We have 2 general eds. We have our special needs class, and then we have a bilingual Spanish and a bilingual Portuguese. And it has been a big challenge because I think someone mentioned before, we have families who have 4 and 5 kids with just 1 computer in the house. And so they're trying to juggle what the schedule is because the district puts out a schedule. And they're coming back at us telling them, we can't do that because we don't have enough technology in our home to do that. So that's been one of the challenges. A lot of it, and within the Portuguese, a lot of them don't speak English. So that was another challenge, trying to get them to come over and understand what the assignments were, and trying to get some Portuguese translators to help with some of that work. So, but overall, most I would say 95% of my kids are on, and they're on work. They're doing their job.
Yeah, teaching 8th grade, I haven't been real successful with the kids wanting to do Google Meets and Google Hangouts. So they don't really want to get involved too much with me on that. But I've tried a few different things. What's working best for me is I seem to get the most participation from my students and the best grades when I just do like a screencastify video and give like a 10 to 15 minute lesson, and then shoot them the video and send about 10 or 15 questions through Google Forms about the lesson, and then they'll respond to that. I'm using Georgia Public Broadcasting a lot. I used it a lot already. It goes great with our curriculum, and it matches up to our standards. And I'd already finished the history standards before this whole COVID thing hit. So now I'm on the government and economic standards, and they've been adding a lot more videos that go right along with our standards and explain how the Georgia government works and how our economy works. And I noticed today on there they have a virtual field trip that the kids can go to that take you through 5 of the big businesses in Georgia, like Home Depot and Coke and Aflac and Delta and stuff like that. And that's a really good resource. The Georgia Council for Economic Education has some really good ideas that I'm using as well. But for me, it seems like I'm getting the most participation when I just do some short videos and then post questions for the kids to answer.
That raises something that I discovered with the pastors the other day too. They're finding their congregations have a much shorter attention span online. Is that proving true for a lot of the teachers too? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all dealing with that. Okay, which means we probably need to make this one shorter than we thought too then, right? Okay.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed too is, I've been struggling with my last unit, which I was ready to go with when school got caught off, Macbeth, like online Macbeth. And one thing I really had to sort of figure out is I can't give them the same amount of reading that we would normally do in class as what they get at home, because they don't have me there explaining things, and their absorption of the material takes much longer. So the first week of online instruction, I was too ambitious. It was too much. And I got some feedback from the good kids. I shouldn't say that, the A+ types, who were saying how much time they were spending on it to figure it out. And I'm like, oh, I got to back off of that. So yeah, like Tony said, a lot more explanation videos. I try to keep my explanation videos less than 20 minutes because, like he said, attention spans are definitely shorter. And I think one of the reasons these kids don't feel the need as they're older to do like the Google Meets or the Zoom meetings. They're still keeping in contact with each other. They're on all kinds of social media and other kinds of platforms. And I've heard this from my own daughter and from some other students too. So I don't know that the older kids feel the need to socialize as much as the younger ones. I have some friends with younger kids, and she talks about how her son just looks so forward to his Zoom meetings with his 2nd grade class. And it's like, look at my dog, and do you want to see my room? And older kids, not so much. So they're already socializing. They don't quite need that part from us. Another thing I try to do just to kind of ease into it, every day I try to start with something silly or funny. Like one day I showed them the meme that said, who's behind coronavirus? And it's the Scooby-Doo guy, I can't remember his name, Fred. And he's taking the mask off the ghost, and it says Zoom. Like little things like that. I find little Macbeth funnies. There was one with an autocorrect mistake where the witches text Macbeth that you're going to be kind hereafter instead of king. They're supposed to say king. And then the next screen he says, okay, honey, I'm going to volunteer at a soup kitchen, and it changes the whole story, So little things like that, like starting off with something funny. A couple of kids have emailed back and said, I look forward to that part. I don't know if they look forward to the rest of it, but they look forward to the first part. So little things like that, just to help them keep a good attitude about the suckiness of all this. Nobody likes this. Right. We would much rather be in classrooms teaching. They would much rather be in classrooms learning on the traditional format. So.
One thing on our end, as far as a challenge goes, is we have the teacher engagement department, but I'm also over the recruiting department. So we've been working for months to have face-to-face transfer fairs and district job fairs. And of course, right now that's not possible. So thankfully, we've already invested for the past 1.5 years on a virtual platform. So last week, we did a virtual transfer fair, but had to get all the principals in the district trained on it and how it works. And then it's really just text-based, so you don't hire anyone through it, but you want to follow up with a Zoom or a Skype interview, so getting them comfortable with that. And it was super successful. Right now we're at like 80 teachers who are able to find jobs through that. So that was something that was scary. And in like 3 weeks, we had to completely redesign what we've been doing for months and try to communicate everything through what's virtual. But what's good, I think, is that everyone kind of is showing a lot of empathy right now. And so they're able to be flexible and not get as crazy as some people will if they're not feeling like they're very technology inclined.
Yeah, yeah. Stacy and then Emily, if you could address this one, please. What specific difficulties have you dealt with? I mean, and we can go into things like lack of internet for students, which I'm sure is a huge deal in some parts of the country, and probably varies within some counties and districts. But any difficulties you're facing as a teacher or with what your students are struggling with? Stacy, if you could go first, please.
So our county is kind of taking this on a little bit differently. We're not actually teaching any new standards during the fourth quarter. They've created lessons for every grade that are subject that are review on our online platform. And so that's what our county has assigned. And if students don't have a way to get that through technology, they can get paper packets. So probably the first week, I probably spent 40 hours in the first 3 days, helping parents get logged in and figure out what they were doing. That's been a little bit of a difficulty. The flip side of that is when you tell parents you're not really covering any new standards, then they're like, oh, so they don't have to do this, So it's a little bit catch-22, but I appreciate that our superintendent is really looking at the fact that there's a lot of different facets to an equitable education. Equity is not just a financial basis. We've got parents, we're a very low income school, but we have parents that are doctors and nurses. And equity is if they're not home to help their kid learn something new, that's not an equitable education either. And so I appreciate the fact that our superintendent we are the largest school district in Alabama. And so we vary from the students that we serve. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge to help parents understand that, hey, we're professionals. I promise you in the fall, I'm going to go back and get every standard your baby missed, we will cover this. The good thing I will say is I'm super relational. So I love calling my parents every week, even though I have 180 students, because I know most of them and I see them in the grocery store and how's grandma, So that part has been easy, but I know it's been a difficulty for a lot of teachers because maybe they don't have those kind of relationships, and that is difficult. But, for me personally, the hardest part is I know statistically out of 180 students, I sent kids home to abusive houses. I sent kids home to houses that don't have an adult there to care for them and love for them. And so just making sure I reach out to those high risk, those kids that I know are in high risk situations. There's a lot we don't know about. Again, we all know abuse is not a socioeconomic status. It reaches across every threshold in our kids' lives. And so for me personally, that's been the hardest part because I always tell my kids, I've taught in 3 states and lots of places, and once you're a Leatherman baby, you're always a Leatherman baby. So that's been hard for me personally, but I think at the end of the day, I have to just, for 23 years, I've said I do what I can do and pray God's hedge of protection around the rest of the time.
Our county kind of did the same thing. We were able to do paper packets for the people who didn't have access to online, and at our school it actually ended up where kindergarten, first and second grade didn't get devices. So if they didn't have a device at home, they didn't get a device. And so they've been doing some paper packets, and then I've been putting things online as well if they do have internet, that they can do just like random things and like fun little games. But I do have a student who doesn't have internet, and one other student lives in a hotel, so it's kind of hard.
So I'll open that up to everybody in just a second, but want to add a question. For those that have had to do the paper packets, do the parents bring those back to the school for you guys to check them out, or?
Well, I have them take a picture of it and then just send it to me through Class Dojo or email it.
So what I actually did today, I guess as everyone else, we're on week 5 of at-home learning right now. We actually did a survey to our students to find out who did not have access to a device but had internet access. And I checked out devices to all of those families last week. Prior to that, for those families, we've been providing the paper packets like the other schools had shared. Our county actually purchased complimentary curriculum workbooks to go along with our math and our ELA for all students in kindergarten through 5th grade. So I set all those out today for the parents, and that's for students who have digital access and for those who don't, because if you have digital, it's going to complement what the teachers are instructing and just provide some additional supports. But I also set out grade level boxes that I had labeled because the parents are asking, when can we turn the work in? That level of accountability, because we found ourselves in such an accountable, I guess, time in education to where accountability has at times superseded the whole child, unfortunately. And I think COVID is going to help us to take a step back to look at the whole child and the bigger picture after this. But I did put out boxes for each grade level. And I told my teachers, I said, just due to the pandemic and the nature of, of the virus, I said, I will wear my mask and my gloves, and I will sort through, which kids based on your rosters and let you know who's turning in things. I've really tried to keep my teachers from having to come to school as much as possible, because I know that they're caring for their families and they're trying to now teach their kids at home too. So as much as I can do by myself, I've been doing. But again, going back to the question about the paper drop-offs, I did have that laid out today, and the parents and the kids were very thankful to get to turn in their work and turn in their library books and to pick up their new work. That will get them through the rest of the school year.
That's basically how we're doing it in our county too. There's like a drive-through. We have 1,000 kids at my school and middle school, 3 grades, and it's like a parent, like where you drop your kids off through the carpool line. You could pull through today. They ask that you leave the work in the back seat. They got the work and put new work in. And it will get to me, and I'll have to check it.
Okay.
Yeah, we did paper packets. We did paper packets just for those first 2 weeks, and then the superintendent went, completely digital with everything. And so we also did, like Amy, we did a survey to see who had and who didn't have access in their home. So those parents were contacted. They came to the school and picked up a Chromebook and signed it out. And then I believe it was either Spectrum or T-Mobile offered within Newark free Wi-Fi. There was a number that was given out, and the parents had to contact and set up the appointment. So those first 4, maybe 3 or 4 days, there were a couple of parents who reached out to me and said, we don't have Wi-Fi, but we do have an appointment. So once the Wi-Fi is installed, my child will get up and running and turn in the work. So that kind of took us into the weekend, and they were able to catch up over the weekend. And then pretty much all my students now I have 26 third graders, and most them, like I said, 95% of them are on board and where they're supposed to be. So we also offer the food. So our district kept the breakfast program and the lunch program. There were certain schools that were assigned within the different clusters of our city, and so they never stopped that. So even today, the students can go and get breakfast, and they can get lunch every single day.
So I've been teaching a class here at Southeastern, one of the freshman level required one, and it sounds like your students are doing a much better job of doing their work than some of mine. I've got a few I haven't heard from since we went remote, and they got a shock when all their grades got updated with zeros the other day. Are any of you dealing with students who haven't done anything? And then how do you respond to that? Kelsey, if you could address that, and then any of you, please just raise the hand and we'll go from there. But maybe Kelsey and Lisa, if you've dealt with any college kids like that, like me, I'd love to hear what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so I definitely have had some students who aren't doing anything yet. We also are facing a lot of difficulty at our school with ensuring that students have devices. We actually ran out of all of the devices on our campus to give out because we had so many students who were in need. So I have one kid who still hasn't picked up a device yet. So I just kind of keep a list of names of like the kids who haven't worked in 7 days, because my program tells me if they've had no activity for 7 days on Khan Academy. And then I'm also keeping track of like extenuating circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just like the most difficult part of all of this, because as teachers, like naturally we're very routine people and we like to keep everything in our own like control. Like, okay, we've got this kid covered, we've got this kid, but so much of this is out of our control. Like if a kid is not working, and I've contacted the parents, like I have one student who has 11 students in their home trying to do work, and they're on 3 computers. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to punish their grade for this circumstance happening to them. I have 2 kids who they had internet, but their parents lost their jobs, so now they don't have internet. So now they're having to get paper packets. So it's like keeping track of all these things is really just documenting so that you remember exactly what's going on with each situation. I think that's been the biggest saving grace, but also weaned in with the difficulties. So just staying on them, continuously reminding. I feel like I'm annoying some of the parents because I've talked to them so many times, like, hey, your kid still hasn't gotten on. Hey, your kid still hasn't gotten on. Like trying to message the students, just doing whatever I can to contact them. It's just whatever you can do.
You know, I think that one of the things that we need to remind ourselves of, and any teachers who end up, watching this, is that truly we are not doing online learning. We're doing remote learning, and there's, I think, a difference. And most of us had just a few days to transition, and we've consistently been refining as we go. And so I think that we as teachers can be really, we need to be patient with ourselves and, give ourselves some grace too. We're all doing the best we can under the circumstances, and none of it is perfect. And as a teacher, for me, the first few days, it was really hard to be okay with that. I'm a very hands-on kind of teacher. So to think about, well, how do I teach my students how to use, alphabet letters in their reading classroom? How do I do that online, right? I've been fortunate in that I teach mostly juniors and seniors. So they're kind of too close to the end of their program to fall apart. But I also feel like I may have over communicated at the beginning, just trying to reassure, like, guys, we're in this together, we're learning along together, we're going to get you through it, And so I think the over communicating at the start probably, sucked more of them into the learning vortex. And they've shown up, sometimes that means that they're rolling over and picking up their laptop off the floor and sitting on their bed with it. I've seen where most of my students sleep at this point. But I think that's, I think that's the thing to remember, we consider how well or not well all of this remote kind of learning is going, is that for many of our students, K-12, and I think, even some college students, but especially in K-12, for some students, school is an escape. School is the safe place. School is where they eat. School is where they build relationships with an adult in a healthy way. And so to me, the thing that I would want to remember, and I'm trying to remember even with my college level students who, by age might be considered grown-ups, but who are still trying to mature, is that, I want them to be well and safe and healthy now. Mm-hmm. And we can deal with some of the academic pieces later in the fall when they come back. And some of the parents that I've talked with who are working through this K-12 situation with their own children that have called me like, you're a teacher, tell me what to do. That's what I just try to reassure them, is take care of your kid. And we as teachers we'll pick up the rest later. Do the best you can. Everybody's doing the best we can. Yeah. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Next one, I'm going to start with Jessica and Amy on this one, and then everybody else come at it from the opposite perspective. As administrators, what specifically can you address as how you're supporting teachers? You both alluded to it already. and maybe you could go into a little more detail, and then others of you share how your administrators are really stepping in to support you and to provide resources for you. So Jessica?
I think the biggest thing that teachers are doing right now, I think kind of instinctively, that we're trying to get on the bandwagon with, is them learning from each other. We've seen a lot of social media groups come together. There's one specifically in Polk that has like over 3,000 people in it on Facebook, and it's a teacher community, but I know that parents and community members are a part of it as well. So it's been really cool to see teachers kind of who previously would never have known that each other existed in the district are now becoming partners in this. And then what's also been exciting to see is our district, specifically the instructional technology team. There's been a few of those people that have jumped in saying, hey, I'm here to help, how can I help? And oftentimes, just speaking from personal experience from being in the classroom, you're just so, head down in the work, sometimes you don't realize what resources are out there. So it's been really cool to see the district and teachers really come together and for teachers to lean on each other. So on that type of bandwagon, we, like I was saying, with the new teacher seminars, pushing those to be more virtual and continuing to bring teachers out. Even just some of the things that were being said so far, like Kelsey talking about with Google Meet, those are all things we want to just continue to share out. We have an intranet page where teachers have access to different resources, but only it's an internal page. It's not something that the community has. And so we've updated that with a ton of resources, and then also offers, just kind of discounts for teachers as they're having to get through distance learning. So that's been the biggest way we've found that teachers have, we've been supporting teachers is in that, and then also recognizing them as a whole person too. I love that y'all brought up about the inequities that are really being highlighted right now, and how we are all having to really see what's behind the curtain for our students. And I think that's also true for a lot of our teachers. So it's been really neat to see administrators come out and see them as a whole person, and not just an employee. So we've seen one high school did like a work office competition. So they took a picture of their home office and then they posted it online, and then the one with the most likes got, won the prize. So just little things to kind of bring their spirits up has been really cool to see.
Amy?
My biggest thing as a leader, and I learned this from being a student at Southeastern, is being a servant leader, Joel. The first thing that I have found, not only with my teachers, but my parents, is I'm the filter, and how I respond to any of this is basically going to be the emotion that they take away. So I have tried to be extremely positive, and our state superintendent has stated a motto of compassion over compliance, which pretty much goes across the state. That's what I've tried to share with my families and my teachers. We're going to be compassionate and looking at everything that's going on versus compliance, and we're going to get through this together. And that's pretty much been my take this entire time with my teachers, is we're going to be okay. We're going to work together. And like I said earlier, as much as I can do for them in the building without them having to come out and still stay under the no more than 10 people in the building at a time policy, I'm doing for them, just because they are moms, they are dads, they're caring for their own families and teaching. And I'm trying to take as much off their plates because they're meeting with their classes. They're having the daily instruction all day long. And I'm at school gathering materials and putting things out. So as much as I can help understand what they're going through, communicate, I think that's the key. As frequently as I can communicate and make sure that we're all on the same page, and that at any moment they've got a question, or a lot of times if a parent sends them a question that they don't know how to respond to, they'll shoot it to me real quick and I'll send it right back. I've told them, text me. I'm that way with my staff. My phone number is my personal number, and Tony will vouch for that. They text me all the time. And, sometimes he'll say, will you please just shut it off for the day? But I think that's the nature of an educator. That's who we are. We give ourselves to what we do. And I think that's why this is so tough, because a piece of us is missing. That laughter in the building is missing when I'm there by myself doing this work. But I think if I could say, what as a leader am I doing for my teachers? I'm trying to effectively communicate everything on an ongoing basis and reassuring them that we're going to get through this, and at the end we're going to be better people when this is over and behind us.
All right, as teachers now, who can share something about what your admin is doing for you?
Message like, welcome back. Here's another week. We can do it. But by Amy saying and Jessica, these groups and reaching out, they're great, to keep the morale of the teachers up, to keep the morale of the district up.
Well, the support from my administration has been really good. They've been keeping us informed every week with faculty meetings and getting the answers to everything we need. And actually, my two principals showed up at my house one day, and I heard a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there they were, and they had a sign that said, "Hey, we're here to do your evaluation." But no, they were just messing with me. They brought me a goodie bag and just with some things. Just wanted to encourage me and stuff. They've been very supportive. It's been really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have faculty meeting through WebEx every Friday from 12 to 1. So we see our other faculty members every week. Our 3 admins rotate calling. So I get a call or text from one of them every week, just checking on me, seeing how I'm doing, if my family's healthy. And I feel like I have a gazillion IEP meetings every week right now online. So I feel like I talk to one of them about 3 times a week with IEP meetings and things like that. So Dr. Abner is our principal. He's been really great. He loves to go live on Instagram and like send you a little thing like, "Hey, Miss Leatherman, come go live with me," and the kids love that. And but he's a people person. He's relational. So he's done a really good job of keeping us connected and really, honestly, number one, making sure that we're all okay physically and mentally and emotionally.
All right, going to this next one, Kathy, Emily, and then Kelsey. Tell me something that just jumps out at you about one of your students or something like you've been a part of. I know some teachers are doing those teacher parades through neighborhoods, things like that. If there's just one story you can share real quick about one of your kids or something you've witnessed or whatever that's just been kind of cool out of all this.
I think the coolest thing for me has been the one-to-one interactions I've had with some students. I especially have, this year has been different than any other year. I don't know what the deal is, but I have a pretty large handful of students who suffer with anxiety issues. And I knew this, in September, but the whole COVID-19 thing has really thrown them. And just to be able to, I've had some really heart-to-heart, one-on-one conversations with these kids and, realize, because for me, I don't get it. I don't have anxiety issues like that, but to be able to walk them through this time, now I get it. I didn't get it September through March, but I get it now. It's a real issue for them to try and deal with schoolwork when really their mind is just crazy anxious about what's going on in the world, worrying about their grandparents. I have one kid who had a kidney transplant 2 years ago, and he's worried about what this is going to do to his immune system, et cetera. So I think for me, that's been the most eye-opening thing from this whole situation. One thing I would add too from the prior conversation, my administration has done a really good job with the administration, paras, and anyone else who was kind of not in a teacher role, our guidance counselors, things like that. They've basically divided our entire student body, which is about 1,400 kids, and they are all now like coaches for those kids. And they check on them weekly, see if they've logged into Canvas, do they have missing assignments? And while we teachers are kind of the first ones to contact them and say, hey, you need to do your work, they've really been doing a great job of contacting those kids and being a second voice of reason. They've contacted some parents too. The ESE and other teachers in that area have been dealing with those kids, the ones on 504s and IEPs. So we've had a really strong support system, which I very much appreciate. But man, some of these kids are struggling. This is not how they saw things going. I have a couple of seniors in my creative writing class. They're devastated.
Yeah.
This is not the senior year that they signed up for. And so it's just, I don't know. I think that's been the most eye-opening thing for me is how big this is to kids. And a lot of them don't have, like some of you mentioned, a lot of them don't have the support system at home to really help them make sense of it. I have several students I've talked to who are basically raising their siblings right now. They've got parents who are essential workers, and you know, they're like emailing me, Mrs. Dyer, I don't think I can get my work done by this due date. And I'm like, don't worry about it. You know, you're taking care of kids more than I am right now. So that's the biggest thing for me, I think, just seeing how big of a deal this is for some of these kids.
A cool thing that I started the other day, well, today, and was the ABC countdown. And so I do it every year, and I've always done it. And so like today was A, and so just asking a fun question to my kindergarteners through Class Dojo, because we didn't do wacky tacky, and that was like a big thing at our school. Sent all the teachers a thing and to challenge us. And then I challenged my students because I was like, if I'm going to dress up, you're going to dress up. And so I had a lot of them just like dress up, so crazy. And it was so much fun. And just do little things like that just to get them positive and like create that positive atmosphere.
So something that we are doing at a school level is we created like a video of teachers like sharing something positive, and it was like created into a YouTube video. So we shared it on our Facebook page, and then every week they're doing a staff challenge also. Like last week it was like, show your crazy socks, and then like parents and kids can go on the Facebook page and like vote for which one is the craziest, and then that teacher wins a little bit of a prize. So that's helped with morale, definitely with the staff. But I definitely have had some really special moments with my students, even like from a distance. Like I was talking to one of my boys, and he said that he's excited to see how this helps him become a better person, because he's not used to like being on the computer and doing math or like being responsible for his own learning. So I thought that was like really insightful of him to share, and it really helped give me perspective. Like, this is really helping us become better people too, working through this adversity. And then I've seen a lot of students who are actually like flourishing in their academics with their online learning, who might have been struggling during the year. So I've been extra sure to encourage those students like, hey, I see you're really doing an awesome job. And you know, it might be because they're just more engaged with the technology rather than me teaching, but maybe this will help them discover some strengths that they have as they move forward through their educational journey. So I think that's really cool to see too.
I had a interesting thing with one of my students, not a traditional student. She's older, married, has her own children, and they foster kids. And she's having to take this required freshman level course. I kind of feel bad because she's like probably figured all this stuff out. But in just talking to her, she was like, I'm just going to have to get you stuff when I can get you stuff. And I was like, that is not a problem. And Lisa, maybe you've dealt with some college kids like that too. But I just thought it was really neat. She's just plugged away. She's actually started her own business at this time during all of this as well. So kudos to her. But it's just interesting how at every level, kids and families are finding ways to get through. Lisa, anything?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Is they're figuring out, you know, what it means for some of our students, some of my students, they're figuring out what it means really truly to live their faith during a time of crisis. Some of them come from families where they are the only ones who are believers, who are Christ followers in their home. So to go home and display their faith and maintain, you know, perhaps some spiritual disciplines while their home has been a way for them to grow. You know, developing and deepening relationships with their family members too. I think that for me, as a, you know, college professor, I miss those sorts of you know, kind of fun connections with my students, although, you know, I do try to get it wherever I can, whether it's, hey, I'll brew a pot of coffee and sit in front of my computer and, you know, you bring your coffee wherever you are and we'll pretend we're at Portico or whatever, right? But I've loved seeing, even in my own neighborhood, we had drive-by school parade, the local elementary school, all the teachers came through. I don't have small children, but I went outside and, you know, waved to them all as they went by. It was, you know, teachers are really being innovative, and I love that. There was another one, my niece had a birthday. Her teaching team drove in front of her house on her birthday last week and, you know, honked their horns and threw balloons out the window. And I think teachers are being really innovative, and I think students are doing the best they can to step up. And I think it's a time that's stretching all of us. I think it's as hard as it is, I think it's been good. It's shown our students a lot about themselves and probably us too.
Anybody want to share one more on that before we get to our last question?
Yeah, Joel, for many years, I've been able to be a part of the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and be the head of that at my school. And just a tremendous ministry where we get to share the love of Christ in the public school. And after this whole distance learning thing started, after, I don't know, a week or so of it, we were like, hey, we got to get FCA going again. We've got to figure this out. I feel like now is a time when God is really working on people's hearts. People are really searching for the truth. And so we started a Google Classroom for kids, and all the teachers gave the code out. This is strictly voluntary if you wanted to join. And we started having some Zoom meetings with our huddle leaders and got them to start making videos of devotions and started posting those. And we actually have more people in the Google Classroom than we had come to our regular meetings on Friday morning. Now, I don't know exactly how many of them, I have no way of knowing how many of them are watching the videos, but I know for a fact that a lot of the teachers are. And, you know, we might have a couple teachers show up on Friday mornings, but I know a lot of them are watching these because they're posting comments, thank you. And so it's been great because the students are doing the devotions. We have a scripture verse of the day, worship song of the day, and it's been awesome. And so if you guys know who does FCA at your school, and if they're not doing anything right now, maybe shoot them an email and let them know. If you're watching this, you know, get a Google Classroom going and get the word out there, because I think now is a time when people are really searching. And one more thing, our high school FCA was going to do an event. This is right before the governor did the first shelter in place, but they had it scheduled the night before he announced it. Like, they were going to do a drive-in for the seniors to come to the parking lot of the school and sit in their cars and have an event where we're going to have student testimonies and student worship song and a little message with just a few people on the stage. And I hate that it got canceled because of the shelter in place, but they said they're going to do it later on. So, you know, this is a great opportunity for that.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to jump in there before I drop this last question on you?
Now, I had seen a couple of our teachers over at Caldwell Elementary. They serve definitely a lower socioeconomic group of students. And so a couple of the teachers absolutely love Caldwell because they have the best teachers. But a couple of their teachers were running through the neighborhood, kind of doing a jog, and they took sidewalk chalk with them and wrote on the kids' driveways saying, Miss Taylor misses you, Miss Miller misses you, as a surprise when they would wake up in the morning. So I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
My daughter got a, just today in our mailbox, it was like this lunch bag, you know, just a white lunch bag, and it said on the front, "You've been TP'd," and it had a roll of toilet paper, and it just said, you know, "We're thinking about you, we miss you." And she's at Polk Creek Collegiate Academy, so she's a 9th grader, but it was just like, "Look what I got, Mom." She was a little confused by it, but at least she knows, you know, she knows that the teachers were thinking about her, and just a small little funny thing to send out.
Joel, our son, he is our youngest son who will be at Southeastern next year. He's a senior this year, and our superintendent has handwritten notes to all of our system seniors, and Landon got his the other day, and that really blessed him to get a handwritten letter from our superintendent in the midst of all the crazy that's going on.
Yeah.
And our teachers, like what you guys have shared, they've done so much. We've, had the parades and the great meetings and just the creative ideas of sending the students notes. But Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. So I did a school call home and just asked all of our families, as you're bringing your work in and getting your new workbooks, if you're able and would like to drop a note, and I went through and listed the different folks and set out boxes as well at the school for each of those grade levels, so that when it comes time for Teacher Appreciation Week, I can collect all of those cards and letters from the kids, because they're not going to get to come back together. And right now, that emotional health of the teachers, we pour our lives into our kids. And I think that's why, come the second month of school, they're our kids and very highly protective of them. That this is emotionally as hard for our teachers as it is our students, not being there, not doing what we normally do. So given this opportunity for our students and our families to tell our teachers thank you, I'm looking forward to seeing the faces of the teachers on Teacher Appreciation Week when they get their baskets with all their cards and letters from the families. I think we need to take care of our teachers during this time.
Yeah, very much so. All right, I have one more question, and it's going to be kind of broad, and it's for all of you, so everybody will get a turn. I would like to know something that you're going to take back from this to your normal classroom, if there ever is a old normal anymore. Something you'll take back, or a suggestion that you have, one or the other, that you can offer advice to somebody else, or something you're going to take back, which also would be advice. But this is your chance to share your thing. So Stacy, we'll start with you, please.
Okay, I posted a couple weeks ago on Twitter this, and I think it's still true. To me, this has just really reiterated my number one belief as a teacher, and when I mentor new teachers or college students, this is what I always tell them: relationships are the most important part of education. And I remember I had a teacher at Southeastern that used to say, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's just true, so this is just really reiterated to me, if a kid's hungry, they can't learn. If a kid feels unsafe, they can't learn. And it's just reiterated the importance of relationships and, knowing your students and knowing the families that you serve. It's important. So for me, that's kind of what my big takeaway, I guess, has been.
Emily?
I feel like my biggest takeaway is just those precious memories of the kids. Kind of like what she was saying, the relationships. I had some students in my class who are just kindergarteners and just young. And so, in the moment I, didn't act, I was like, oh, I need a break. I just need a break. But those kids, I look back and I'm like, oh, I really do miss those kids. And, just making time for each one of them.
All right. Kelsey, what do you got?
So piggybacking off of what they said, I do believe that it's important that we always leave our students on a positive note. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to be focusing on. I mean, I try to do it every time too, but with the class transition, sometimes it's super quick, like, okay, have a great day or have a great weekend. But taking the extra time with that is very important, because you don't know when it's going to be the last day that they might say no more school for the rest of the year. But on an academic standpoint, I think something that I really want to take away is setting up some sort of online platform while I'm in the classroom with the students, because this has been like an extremely challenging transition for students at our school, because a lot of us never use technology in the classroom. We just teach and they go home, and we might send home paper homework, but these kids had no clue how to use these platforms, and trying to explain it as best as you can when you cannot see them is a little bit challenging. So getting that up and going might have been easier if we would have had something in place before. And realizing just what you can do with the technology, how you can integrate it in your classroom, yet still have the majority of the teaching happening with you, I think is something that I will take away from it.
All right. Kathy?
I think my biggest takeaway from this will be not assuming anything or taking anything for granted with these kids. I have found so many situations with students that, I mean, I've gone, beginning of the year until now without knowing some things about these kids that are big things, like that they're dealing with at home or with their parents or whatever. And just, sometimes we assume, oh, that kid's just lazy, or that kid's just this or just that. There's so much going on in some of these kids' lives that, I never had to deal with at that age. And so, I don't know, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway, that and the fact that, praise God, the world finally realizes that teachers are valuable if they did it before, right? I mean, how many messages or whatever I've gotten, that I am appreciated. And it's nice to hear that. So at least we're not obsolete. That's a good thing.
Lisa.
This is a hard one for me. I have to narrow it down, that's why. I think for me, the importance of community, and, as others have said, building connections with kids. I think I'm good at that in the classroom, but I don't think I realized the true impact of the community, the classroom community that I try to create, until we weren't actually physically together. The other thing that I want to take away here is I personally need to continue to stretch myself in terms of using technology in the classroom, like Kelsey said, move away from some of the things I'm really comfortable with, like Padlet and Kahoot and some other things, and really think about how I can truly use technology for learning online, even though I don't love it, true confessions. I need to know how to do it in case we ever need to do this again.
Yeah. Abner.
I would say that my biggest takeaway would be being more parent proactive. And what I mean is, if during the school year, the kids didn't have the technology and it wasn't offered to them, why would it be offered now that we're in a crisis? So if the students needed the computers when we were in school, why didn't they get them? So being more, so now it was more like, well, 5 kids don't have computers. Oh, well, they can come to school and get a Chromebook and we'll give it to them. Why wasn't that offered earlier? Prior to this, when they needed a computer in the home, and it was like, no, we can't give out the Chromebooks, but now we're in a crisis and they can get the Chromebooks. So being a little bit more proactive in the beginning of the school year and really fighting for the parents, making sure that the kids have all the tools necessary. And if the school has them, that we learn from this, well, we gave it to them, during this time, we can give it to them during another time if they don't have a computer. So giving the parents that little piece that, I don't have a computer right now for my child, and I can be the voice that says, don't worry, I'll speak to the principal, I'll speak to our tech coordinator, and we will get your child a Chromebook, and they'll be able to do the work at home. And, looking back at this moment as a springboard for that.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, so I am a huge advocate for family engagement, and I can't really push it enough. And I think through all this, I think people are realizing that if you weren't really having a great relationship with families and weren't engaging families before this, you're probably kicking yourself for it now. I think it's a lot harder to probably show empathy on either side and to be able to get a hold of families if you weren't already working hard to build that relationship. So I think a lot of, at least the teachers I've talked to, have seen that that's really valuable, and moving forward we'll make sure that they have the contact information and are building those relationships, not just in the event something crazy like this were to happen again, but just because they realize the importance of having that support on both ends. So that to me would be the biggest thing that I've seen. Man, this is so valuable since we're all coming around the child together.
Amy and Tony.
Well, for me, a couple things. I'm kind of one of those old school teachers that do a lot of direct instruction, class discussion, things like that. And that's always worked for me, and the kids seem to do well. So I've really learned a lot through this about technology. And so I think for me, I'm going to be able to, use a lot of that going forward from what I've learned from all this with the technological aspect. Also, I'm a pretty competitive person, and like a lot of time, you wouldn't know that, would you, Joel? But I get pretty focused sometimes on like test scores, and I got to cover this, and I'm going to be, we're going to have the best test scores, and da 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 da. And after going through something like this, at the end of the day, that none of that really matters. It's about the kids and building relationships and being a light, the light of Jesus to them.
Mhm.
So to kind of start with a funny, Joel, I had a parent message me the end of last week and said, when you do rosters for next year and work on those, can I please have a request that the teacher for next year not be me? Meaning the parent. I think parents are really, really appreciating what teachers do now that they're trying to do the remote learning from home. But overall, I think moving into next year, and these were some conversations that my teachers and I were having kind of late February, being that we are a Google school system and all of our students do have email addresses through the school system. Google Classroom, the kids knew how to access it, but all of the parents who are now the teacher at home have had a learning curve with that. So we've talked about starting off next school year when we do our orientations of actually sitting down with our parents, those who come to the school, and getting them logged on, day one when we have that orientation. So if we are to ever face a time like this again, we've not only taken care of working with our kids and them knowing how to access it, but we've also taken care of teaching the parents how to go in and log in and support their kids at home with Google Classroom. So that was our biggest takeaway, was that our parents don't know as much about the technologies that we have with our students. So hopefully next year will be a better, smoother start for our parents technologically.
Yeah. Well, you guys are amazing. And to me, you're just a shining example of what so many of our alumni are, the thousands of alumni who are in education right now. And you're just showing what they're like. And we get such great reports from school systems around the country bragging on our alumni and what our teachers are doing in their schools. So thank you guys for what you've done for your students, what you've done for your parents, what you're doing for fellow teachers. I thank you, and I'm so proud of you, and I know your alma mater is super proud of you. And you guys are wonderful, and I thank you, and I appreciate you guys being a part. And hopefully this will be a great resource for your alumni friends, and share it with anybody you want to. So thank you guys. Take care. And
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
Bye, guys. It's good to see you again.